And welcome to today's webinar, The Intersection of Safety and HR, presented by our sponsor, Heffernan. We're so happy you can join us. My name is Michelle Wilcox, and I will be your moderator today, and I will also be monitoring questions you may have during the session. Before we open up the session, let's review a couple of key items. All of the webinar materials we discussed can be found at the URL currently showing on your screen. I will be sharing this URL in a follow-up email, so don't feel like you need to write it down right now. If you have trouble with your internet connection during the webinar, we recommend leaving the presentation and logging back in. We do not control the audio, your devices control the audio. So if you have audio difficulties, try adjusting the volume settings on your device. If a telephone line goes dead during the call, hang up and call back again at the same number. If all lines go dead, watch the on-screen chat box for an alternative call-in number. Feel free to ask questions or provide feedback by using the chat box or questions box during the webinar. If you're using a tablet, you may need to tap on the screen for the options bar to appear, and then you can select the appropriate option. We may not respond immediately, but we will work your questions or feedback into the presentation. If we can't get your comment or question during the session, we will be online afterwards to respond, or we may follow up in an email if we run completely out of time. You may also email us at moderator@aspenrng.com for up to 48 hours after the webinar. This will be a 1-hour presentation. Questions and comments are very much encouraged throughout, and the presenters will be answering questions at the end. And lastly, we have a number of upcoming webinars covering a variety of topics, including those listed at the Heffernan webinar website. With that, let's begin today's webinar. Our presenters today are Pam White and Deb Beddoe. Pam has been in workers' compensation, risk management, and environmental safety, health and safety, having worked as a loss control consultant, senior VP of risk management, and regional manager for more than 20 years. Most recently, she was a senior vice president running a large loss control team. She holds designations such as ARM, SIP, and CPWC, indicating expertise in risk management and insurance. She also has experience working with captive programs and self-insured, high deductible, and retro plans. Pam's work history and education demonstrate her ability to assess client needs, develop tailored safety and risk prevention programs, and implement effective risk mitigation strategies. She has experience in conducting root cause analysis, loss prevention reviews, and training sessions on workplace safety. Deb Beddoe is a senior professional in human resources, SPHR, and her professional experience spans over 30 years. 12 years ago, she founded her company called Your Ops Manager that manages the business operations of small businesses, including all the elements of human resources. As an advisor to companies of less than 50 employees, Deb has been advising employers about the HR side of safety since 2010. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and change the presentation over to you, ladies.
There we go. Pam, I'll let you take it off.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining Deb and me today to talk about safety and HR. We're both pretty passionate about the subjects because we've seen over and over again the difference it can make when these two departments work together and the problems created when they try to operate separately. So first things first, we need to read through the disclaimer before we get started. The information presented is general in nature and is intended to present as an overview of employment practices. The written and verbal content of the presentation are not intended to constitute consulting and/or advice. And no client relationship is established between the presenters and the attendees.
So, good morning, everyone. Thank you for attending. When we think about safety and HR in our workplaces, it can be hard to see how those two are very interwoven into the success and profitability of an organization, or even with each other. Oftentimes, these two departments may work with little strategic planning between the two, and because of that, it makes it so that these two departments exist in their own silos. But the organization and its employees would benefit greatly from seeing how these two departments intersect and how one can help the other, which in turn helps everyone in the organization. When we think of HR, some of the top items that we think of HR being responsible for would be hiring and firing employees, improving overall retention, supporting the workforce and supervisors, complying with regulations, and that's pretty much what people think the HR department does.
Thank you, Deb. While both the HR and the safety departments care about their employees, we have different methods of reaching company goals around protecting employees, ensuring profitability, and protecting the company's reputation. For safety, the focus is typically on implementing strategies designed to prevent incidents. That could include training employees or enforcing safety rules. The safety department also has to be aware of OSHA regulations and needs to ensure that operations are in compliance with these. There's a shared responsibility for employee well-being. HR focuses on hiring, training, engagement, and culture, while safety focuses on preventing injuries, illness, and hazards. Together, they support physical, mental, and psychological safety at work.
So let's take a look at how safety and HR intersect. Each department needs to hire and train employees. HR usually plays a role in the following aspects: interviewing and hiring, the new hire orientation, disciplinary action and recognition, regulatory compliance, consistency. And what I mean by that is consistency for the organization in terms of performance. But safety is also a key part of all of these items. So Pam, how can safety participate in these aspects?
Actually, safety can be heavily involved in each aspect of the employee-employer relationship. And it's important to include and talk about the safety culture at each level. Let's start with the hiring process. Safety can ensure the physical requirements for each job are clearly defined and assist HR in interviewing people that would be work hardened and capable of carrying out the duties of the job successfully. If our goal with safety is to protect our employees, the last thing we want to do is hire someone who isn't going to fit in our safety culture. HR looks at whether the employee will fit the workplace culture already, but getting a feel for how they will fit the safety culture is important. You can ask questions to get an idea of how much safety knowledge and exposure an applicant has and if they're likely to follow safety rules or disregard them, and all within the hiring process. This is critical when you're hiring your first line supervisors. Once hired, the new hire orientation should focus heavily on safety as a company value. It should be enforced by every level of the organization, from the company president to the supervisor to the safety manager to the new hires' coworkers. But it also has to be enforced. The company's discipline action plan should also apply to safety, and the process should be consistent. Whether the employee is in trouble for coming in late or not wearing safety glasses. The other side of that is recognizing employees for doing the right thing. When safety and HR work together to recognize and discipline employees, that consistency helps to reinforce safety expectations. Consistency is important as it relates to other departments too. If the production crew follows one guideline and the maintenance team follows another, then you can run into issues. Consistency between the two ensures that everyone understands the rules. They're applied the same, and it helps with compliance. Regulations may affect safety and HR differently, but the importance of staying on top of changing standards and meeting or exceeding what is required is the same.
All right, so we've got our first poll this morning. So does your organization's HR and safety departments both play a role in the hiring and training of a new employee? The answers you have to choose from are always, sometimes, never, or I'm not sure. And I'm going to go ahead and launch this. And again, thank you for being here this morning. We will be going ahead and sending a follow-up email at the end of the presentation or later this afternoon that will have links on how to get a copy of the presentation and if there's some references that we may have available. So I'm going to go ahead and close the poll now. We've got about 60%. So Pam, looks like 61% say always, 29% say sometimes, 10% say never, and 3% say I'm not sure.
Okay,
Wow,
thank you.
I love that.
That's
I
a great
love
result.
the, yeah, I love the always percentage. So let's see, next slide. So how did I get there? There we go. So HR and safety collaborate on workforce policies like conduct, attendance, drug-free workplace, reporting serious workplace injuries or fatalities. And employee safety is not just a frontline or operational issue. It starts with how people are hired, how they're managed, how they're supported. HR helps ensure roles are designed realistically, which reduces fatigue and burnout that can lead to safety incidents. Safety data can highlight workload or staffing issues that HR can address through workforce planning. And a holistic approach requires that psychological safety, like feeling respected and feeling heard in the workplace, it directly affects physical safety. So stress, fatigue, and mental health challenges increase the likelihood of accidents. If an HR leads wellness initiatives that can address sleep, stress management, and work-life balance, then safety teams can identify roles or environments with higher mental or physical strain. The proactive wellness efforts reduce long-term health risks and workers' compensation claims, which is what we're all interested in. So safety expectations should be integrated into onboarding, not treated as a one-time requirement. HR learning platforms can track safety certifications and refresher training. Cross-training supervisors on both HR and safety topics improves consistency in enforcement. Effective training focuses on behavior change, not just rule memorization or rule management. Safety should work very closely with HR to ensure a formal new employee orientation is developed and specific to the job the new employee will be doing. Most safety training is delivered by safety and the supervisors, so the HR department will want to ensure that training is a skill a new supervisor will need to have. However, HR is typically responsible for training and harassment.
HR is
I'll let you take it. Sorry.
HR is often involved in working with the third-party administrators and the doctors. And in California, they're involved in the interactive process when managing return to work. HR ensures investigations are fair, confidential, and free from blame. Safety focuses on identifying root causes rather than individual fault. Safety should ensure that any impacted programs, processes, or training is updated to ensure corrective actions are effective. Consistent documentation protects both the employee and the organization. Learning from near misses helps prevent future incidents and shows employees their concerns matter. So let's talk about culture and leadership. Leaders set the tone. HR and safety help ensure leaders model safe and respectful behaviors. A strong safety culture encourages employees to speak up without fear. HR can incorporate safety behaviors into performance reviews and leadership development. Recognition programs can enforce positive safety actions and accountability. So as you can see, there's a big impact on both culture and leadership.
Absolutely. Employees are more likely to stay with organizations where they feel safe and valued. So let's talk about performance and retention. Fewer injuries means less downtime, lower insurance costs, and higher productivity. Safety metrics can be used as leading indicators of engagement and morale. And a strong safety record enhances the employer brand and supports recruitment efforts.
Now, I know the last thing any of us want to talk about is COVID-19, but when it comes to HR and safety departments working together, this is actually a great example. If I can drag you all back to January and February of 2020 for just a minute, I want to remind you that what we were all dealing with. At that point, we had been watching China get ravaged by this virus that no one had seen before and no one knew anything about. We knew it was contagious, but we had no idea how it was spread yet, and we're kind of hoping it wouldn't affect the United States. Then a few cases popped up, and it was here. States tried to provide directions, starting with just shutting things down, with the theory that if we went for 2 weeks without interacting with each other, the virus would have run its course, and we can go back to normal. But all essential operations closed their doors. But when that didn't work, we had to figure out how to reopen businesses and keep employees safe. Do you remember who did that? Safety and HR. They worked together to create plans to bring everyone back to work and to try and do it in the safest possible way. Every company was dealing with something different, and all of us were looking to the CDC for guidance. The guidance then was to wear a cloth mask and keep 6 feet away from others. So we redesigned workstations, added partitions to separate people from anyone they had to speak to face, mandated the use of face masks, trained employees so they knew what was required, and enforced the rules. And the situation kept changing because we soon found out the virus was airborne, and 6 feet might help a little, but it wasn't doing us much good, and those partitions weren't useful at all. We got to know the different types of masks available, and we all tried to find masks for employees to wear when there was a shortage for even healthcare workers. We wrote plans for COVID prevention in states where that was required, and we modified them after each rule change. It was exhausting, but HR and safety departments got through it together. We prevented illness. Some companies had only a handful or even no work-related COVID illnesses. This is an example of what can be accomplished when safety and HR departments work together.
Thank you, Pam. And I just want to mention, Michelle, your audio is a little bit echoey, and Pam, your audio is getting to be a little bit scratchy just in the last slide. I don't know if anything has changed, so I just thought I'd mention that. So
Okay,
during COVID-19, how were companies able to succeed? COVID-19 was a great example of HR and safety working together, hand in hand, but at a safe distance, of course, as Pam just discussed with us. But why might it have worked so well? Part of that is because everyone was talking about it. We had reminders in front of us from when we woke up until we went to bed. And these consistent reminders with reinforcement of the controls that had been developed and implemented helped to serve as an ongoing enforcement of keeping our distance, washing our hands, using sanitizer, and then also using other forms of PPE. These things, these controls and actions pretty much became second nature because they were so repeated throughout the day, every single day. Humans do very well with repetition. We can look at this as a great example of HR and safety working together to help control a hazard and protect employees. So let's move on to another poll then.
Okay, and I do apologize, everybody, because there is feedback from all of us, Deb. So I'm just not sure. Hopefully it'll work itself out, but bear with us as we see if we can get through this. So the next polling question that we had is how involved. I'm sorry, pardon, Deb?
I'm going to switch to my phone if I.
Okay. How involved is HR and safety at your organization? They participate in facility walkthroughs. They are involved in disciplinary action. They participate on the safety committee. they are involved in all of these or they are involved in none of these. And I'll go ahead and launch that poll. And wait until we get, I appreciate everybody's participation. We like getting the feedback. And I'm going to go ahead and just give it a couple seconds here before I close. Okay. Let's go ahead, and it looks like 55% are saying that they are involved in all of these. Then we've got 31% saying they are involved in disciplinary action. Then we've got 29% saying that they participate on the safety committee. And then 4% say they are involved in none of these.
Okay, well, that's a pretty good result. That 55% are involved in all of those interactions. Okay, let's talk about engaged HR. Listed here are 3 primary safety duties in developing programs, safety committees, and facility walkthroughs. These are traditionally safety roles, but I'm going to point out how engaging HR into each of these functions can improve your overall result. When writing a safety program, it should always reflect your company's specific operations. It should also be consistent with other programs that are in place. Have any of you ever started working on a safety program only to find out that HR was working on something similar? Or maybe they already had it in place, but it wasn't within the safety documents. It was in HR. If you need to develop a new safety program or you're updating an old one, have HR look it over. Let them know what you're working on so you can know if they already have something developed. Then get their input to make sure that your program is in line with other company policies. This consistency is important for employees. It reinforces the concept of safety as a value when safety programs are in line with other company policies and everyone is on the same page. The safety committee is another place where HR can help. As you're discussing safety issues and trying to figure out how to correct a hazard or what to do about a recent incident, the HR department representative can provide guidance to ensure that whatever strategy you implement to correct the situation, is in alignment with other company policies. They can also provide feedback on regulations specific to their operations that might force you to change your strategy. It's always better to know about this in advance so you don't have to change something you just implemented. It can also be helpful for HR to do facility walkthroughs with you. It can help them better understand the operation and the work conditions. It can help them with hiring and answering questions from prospective employees. It also lets you add a new set of eyes to the inspection process. As they ask questions to better understand how things work, they may spot something you've been walking past for years. Having a different point of view on these walks can help you better protect employees.
Let's look a little deeper into how HR and safety intersect. And Michelle, I did switch to my phone. If this is not better, let me know.
Sounds a little
HR can build some questions into the interview format. And here's some examples. What was safety like at the last company you worked for? What role did you play in safety in your previous position? How can you help keep yourself and others safe at work? If a candidate has a negative answer or makes statements which show they may view safety in a negative manner, this might not be a good candidate. So how else can HR help in filtering candidates so that hiring managers have the right person for the job? Well, we can set up pre-hire medical or drug screenings, and with proper job descriptions, HR can help develop medical requirements that are job specific. HR should have an occupational clinic selected to have pre-hire tests conducted with, and by having these requirements and processes in place, HR can help managers ensure they have a good candidate for the position that they're hiring for.
Great, thank you. Let's talk a little bit about onboarding and orientation. The best time to establish that safety is a value in an organization is at the very beginning. Showing a united front is one way to do this. As an employee goes through training, they receive an employee handbook and various HR policies are covered. Safety should be part of this session. Integrate the IIPP and company safety rules and expectations into this initial introduction to the company and let them hear about safety from different people and different departments. Organizations handle orientation differently, depending on their size, the number of people hired at any given time. But one way to show a united front is for everyone to be consistent in the messaging about safety. Sometimes HR does the full orientation and a supervisor picks up on the job training. In other organizations, safety is more involved presenting the program to each new hire or to groups of new hires. In any case, the message from the executive level to HR to the safety department and the employee supervisor has to be the same. Safety is an integral part of our operation and every employee plays a role. Set out the company's expectations for safety, including how that's tied to disciplinary actions. Ask new employees to contribute to your safety culture by telling their supervisor if they have any safety concerns and encourage them to ask questions as they go through the training to make sure they understand how to do their job duties in the safest possible way. If an employee does raise concerns, it's important to investigate them and follow up with that person. Even if a hazard isn't identified, it's important to speak to the person and explain what you learned and how it will be addressed or why it isn't considered a hazard.
Thanks, Pam. I went to the next slide a little bit early there. Sorry, everyone. So the HR can help lay the groundwork. So let's talk about that. As with nearly everything we know about or do, the more we know, the better our preparations and the better the outcome, as well as the process can be going smoother. So the HR team should have the following processes in place before an accident has happened. What clinic is used, who provides the transportation, who needs to be notified, is this incident OSHA reportable? Managers should be trained on these items and they should know where to find resources for them if needed. HR can help provide that training. And as with many things in life, sending out reminders and providing updates and refreshers on a regular basis is highly beneficial. Pam, you want to talk about?
Oh, yes. So HR can help you find your allies. We did just talk about this a bit. Where this goes into effect is that HR is the primary person who is going to speak with the medical providers. They're going to talk to them about the types of injuries and things that are coming typically from your company. They're going to talk to them about any kind of prescription programs that you have. They're going to talk to you about the return to work policy. They have job descriptions available. They may have the return to work or modified duty positions that are available for injured workers in each department, which is of a huge benefit. They will have all your contact numbers for emergency response, and they're going to make sure that they're familiar with the layout and the hazards when you have a new employee start. So those are some of the ways that HR can help you to find who it is that you're going to work with and make sure that you have the emergency contact information that you need. Okay, next slide.
Okay, we're on to another poll. Let's see here. My organization does an accident investigation after. First option is near miss incidents, property damage incidents, injury incidents, none of the above, or all of the above. And I'll go ahead and launch that so everybody has a chance to get their answers in. And we'll just give it a couple more seconds here. Again, thank you for participating. We appreciate your feedback. And I'm going to go ahead and close it. So it looks like 54% say all of the above, 33% say injury incidents, 19% says property damage incidents, 13% say near miss incidents, and 6% say none of the above. So I'll go ahead and close that out.
Okay, well, that kind of shows a few areas where there could be some improvement, but overall, I think that's a pretty good result. Let's talk a little bit about the accident investigation. HR and safety need to work together as a team once an accident's happened and an employee is injured. The roles should be clearly defined as to whom will take what action if an injured worker requires medical treatment. A claim needs to be filed or OSHA needs to be called. At that point, someone needs to be responsible for managing the claim, someone needs to investigate the incident, and someone authorized needs to make the call. This should be a clear procedure and the two parties need to communicate. The information learned in the accident investigation can impact the claim and vice versa. For example, if the investigation determines that the employee was under the influence of drugs or alcohol when they were injured, that could determine factors on how the claim is handled. On the other hand, if an injured worker went to the clinic after lacerating a finger, but the claim indicates the employee has a sprained ankle, then the investigator may need more information about how the incident occurred. Often human resources manages claims while the safety department investigates the incident. But making sure that the employee is properly cared for and brought back to work requires both. When an accident investigation is completed, the findings have to make sense for everyone. In order for HR to understand the findings, they may need a good understanding of the operation, which they would get from doing the facility walkthroughs with safety departments and interacting with other employees. It can also be helpful to complete the investigation together. Having someone else to bounce ideas off of during an investigation is helpful, but discussing it ensures that both safety and HR understand what went wrong and what needs to be done to fix it. So you can see from these examples that because HR reports the claim, it's going to be very important for them to work with the safety department so that they can present the best information to the claims adjuster. Okay, thank you.
Yep. So now we can get into some more of the human aspects about human resources can help control losses. Communication is key and should be a joint effort. A lot of this falls on the human resources department, but safety and the employee supervisor also support this effort. If the employee thinks or feels that the company doesn't want them back or views them in a negative manner, this can create barriers to the employee's recovery and return. Heck, the barriers may or may not even really exist, but they can be presumed to exist. If the employer shows compassion for the employee, it can go a long way towards fostering positive feelings and interaction. Don't stop communicating with an injured employee because they have a work comp claim. A simple way to check in with an employee is by sending them a get well card. Simple. Call them and see how their medical visit went. Are they comfortable with the medical treatment? Do they need assistance with their claim? Sometimes the claim process can be overwhelming for an injured employee who is really just looking to get the treatment that they need. If the HR person or a manager can help them to understand the process, then answer their questions or help them find the answers they need, and even help them with the paperwork to keep that claim moving forward, so it can keep the employee from feeling that they need an advocate, like an attorney, to help them. Let them know that they are still important and that based upon the doctor's requirements, the company is looking forward to them returning to work. You also need to make sure that you're following the doctor's restrictions that are needed for the recovery. Keep track of their treatment information and the timelines. Then set follow-up reminders both with the medical provider, the employee, and the claims manager. And if the company doesn't have a job that fits within their restrictions, consider partnering with an outside agency to help with the return to work process and accommodating restrictions.
HR can also often do a great job of showing employees that the company cares, but some studies suggest that it can be better to have a supervisor involved in this. Employees typically have a relationship with their supervisor, and maintaining that helps them to feel connected to the company. Have their supervisors involved in these periodic check-ins. Have them visit the employee at the hospital or get their supervisor or the safety team to have their coworkers sign a get well card for the employee. All of these little steps help with that relationship and show the employee that their coworkers care. One other idea for working together is to use the safety committee for coming up with ideas for return to work based on the employee's restrictions.
Thanks, Pam. As the employer, it's important to stay in communication with the claims manager as well. So stay informed yourself. Communicate with the insurance company. Have all of your paperwork in order. Share your concerns and anything learned in the AI that may be relevant to the claim. Notify them if other employees report red flags. The insurance company will determine if something is compensable. It's not up to the employer to determine that. The insurance company will determine if red flags can be further investigated based on the law. It's not the employer's responsibility to do the investigation. Follow up on the status until the claim is closed. So by staying actively engaged with the employee, the clinic, and the claims manager, then HR can help get the employee back to work sooner and the claim closed in a timely manner. And by doing these things, HR can help to reduce the total cost of the claim, as well as reduce the likelihood of a litigated claim. So that brings us to a polling question, Michelle.
Yeah, so this one we're going to do a little bit differently. If you can open your questions box, we're just going to ask the question, and then if you can just type your answers, I'll relay them to the presenter. So what can HR or a manager do to help an employee return to work sooner? So if you guys don't mind shooting me a quick response to what your ideas are, I will be happy to relay those for discussion. And again, that's in the questions box. Give it a second here. And if we don't have anything, I guess we'll just move on. Somebody's saying check in on the employee's recovery,
Right.
modify the date, follow up with an employee after injury, accommodate the work restrictions, follow up the status until claim is closed, follow up with the employee. Regular communication, modifying current job based on skills, modify work and duties. So those are all great ideas. Thank you, guys.
All right, yes. Thank you for participating in that.
Well, it sounds like somebody's got a very, very good handle on the process and how important it is to stay in communication. Let's talk a little bit about HR and how they can provide us some guidance. Our guidelines. Managers and supervisors have a lot of responsibilities, from meeting production requirements to maintaining equipment and ensuring that their employees are safe. Safety in and of itself is a lot to handle, especially in a company without a dedicated safety department. New managers and supervisors are not always aware of all of the responsibilities they're taking on when they accept a promotion. When a person transfers from one position to another, they should receive some training so that they understand their new job duties. A lot of times that comes from HR. In terms of safety managers and supervisors, they're responsible for enforcing safety rules, training employees, recognizing and correcting hazards. Beyond that, they have to take the time to listen to employees and address their concerns. In addition to ensuring that managers understand their responsibilities as it relates to employee safety, it's also helpful to provide them with resources and guidelines to follow for how to handle different situations. Accidents are a primary example. This is an emergency that can be jarring, depending on what has occurred. If the manager has a policy to follow that supports HR's needs, it can make the entire situation less stressful for everyone involved. Have a list of items that HR needs from the manager and a timeline for submitting them. If you want the manager to fill out the first notice of loss, or if they need to give the employee certain documents to take to the clinic or to provide contact information or other employee documentation, they need to know that. They also need to know who to contact when an incident has occurred and where to send the injured worker. Deb talked a lot about these things earlier, but having a clear process can make a big difference for a manager, especially one who hasn't had a lot of employee injuries.
Right. So HR should take the lead in making sure managers are trained that when employees report an injury, they are not bad employees or filing fake claims. HR needs to work with and train managers to try and recognize and avoid bias and not to use negative connotations about workplace injuries and injured employees. But these thoughts and feelings are not beneficial to the company's culture. A helpful statistic is from a Department of Insurance study about work comp claims fraud. It's about 1% to 2% of the total cost of claims. So with it being that low, we don't want to set a tone at our company that work comp claims that are being filed by bad employees with fake claims. Let's not use this type of negativity when training managers how to handle claims or employee reports. Instead, we should build a safety culture of caring. Inform employees that reporting unsafe items and hazards, or even potential hazards, is a positive thing. Then, as the employer makes sure those items are corrected, follow up with the reporting employee. Let them know that you care. By acting on, controlling, and correcting hazards, employees will be shown that the company cares about them and their safety. Of course, the employer should also regularly remind employees that they are to report injuries, even if minor ones or near misses, very promptly. This also demonstrates that employers desire to keep employees safe and get them to proper treatment that they might need. Each of these interactions reinforces positive views of safety and the care of employees versus injuries being viewed as in a negative manner. That, of course, isn't to say that an employee finds injuries to be positive, but they can set the stage for the interactions and the safety culture through positive reinforcement. The accident investigation should keep drilling down on the why an accident happened. The report's outcome shouldn't stop or be solely based on an employee didn't follow safety guidelines. Why didn't that employee follow the guidelines? What was the PPE that maybe wasn't provided? Or did they not have the proper equipment to do the job well? Was the equipment in disrepair? There's a list of whys, and it's important to keep going back and back and back until you find the answer that is the fundamental reason that the incident occurred. The thing that, if changed, would have created a different outcome. We may not need to go all the way back to creation, but keep asking until you see what the root cause is. Employers should strive to remove barriers in communication and open pathways. Part of that means explaining to the employee why the accident investigation is taking place. It isn't to place blame, but to fix a hazard and prevent future injuries.
That's correct. Appreciate that. Let's talk a little bit about what HR can do to hold employees accountable. Safety cultures are based on transparency. When investigations take place or new procedures are implemented, you have to meet with employees to provide them with an explanation. Tell them what you learned in the investigation, listen to their concerns, and explain why different procedures have been implemented. The more they understand, the more likely that they will follow the new procedures. Employees' concerns over change may give you additional input that changes your initial plan, and that input is invaluable. To have a safety culture, you have to listen to other points of view and incorporate that information into the overall plan. Safety communication has to go both ways, and that's an OSHA requirement. You should want to hear what employees are concerned about, and you have to address those concerns. We've spoken about safety as a company value a few times. The reason safety should be a value is because values don't change. They are a compass guiding your way. Priorities change, or when safety is only a priority, or something else can easily become more important. One way to show that safety is a value is to make it part of everyone's evaluation. When complying with safety rules and engaging in the safety culture is an expectation that every employee is striving to meet, you'll strengthen your safety culture. So let's talk about how you can promote your safety program and how HR can help to improve your results. Managers and safety people can get stuck in a rut of correcting issues. They're constantly reminding the other employees to wear the right PPE or slow down or lift with their legs. As a result, they can lose sight of what is done right. HR can help with that. Actually, you can support each other. Sometimes the better way to correct a behavior issue is not to keep trying to enforce it, but to call out and recognize the people who are doing it right. This is known as positive reinforcement, and it's powerful when it's done right. So let's talk about a few ways to reinforce good behavior.
Thanks, Pam. Pam just mentioned recognizing good behavior when you see it. So recognize it. A simple thanks goes a long way. Thanks for wearing your PPE. Thanks for moving that cord out of the walkway. Thanks for using proper lifting techniques. Whatever it is, it's good just to recognize it. Some organizations have formal recognition programs, and that might be as simple as handing out a $5 gift card when people are observed doing the right thing, or entering them into a drawing for a prize. We can sponsor lunch for employees to express your gratitude for their dedication to safety, and you can do all kinds of things that show your appreciation. Now, some of you might be wondering about how OSHA looks at recognition programs. As long as what you're doing isn't such a huge reward that it would discourage someone from reporting an incident, OSHA says it's acceptable. If employees have to wait an entire year to be rewarded, and the reward is a week-long vacation for 2 in the Caribbean, and any one incident would make everyone ineligible, then you're probably discouraging people from reporting injuries. However, if the reward is lunch or a nominal gift card or a bonus, and eligibility is based on each individual, or it's over a short time period and then restarts, you're less likely to have a problem. These programs have to be designated and designed to avoid discouraging employees from reporting incidents, but they can be used to reinforce safe behaviors and to express gratitude. Pam can give you another example.
Yes. Remember what we were saying about transparency? The only way that you're going to get employees to do what you want them to do is if you talk about it and talk about it and talk about it. You have to find the reason that motivates them to do what you need. Explaining why you want them to do something can help. Logic and reasoning will work. For others, you'll have to find other ways to reach them. So let's talk about a really common issue. Using safety glasses. Lots of facilities require employees to wear safety glasses when doing certain tasks, and lots of employees ignore this rule. I see it all the time when I'm walking through facilities. How do you change that? Talk to the employees. Explain that you want them to wear their safety glasses because you don't want them to damage their eyes. If that's not enough, ask them why they don't wear them. Maybe they're uncomfortable or they fog up. Then fix the problem and come back to them and push them to do it again. We bought these anti-fog wipes that will help keep your lenses from fogging over. Or if we have 4 different types of safety glasses, because we realized that what we had before didn't fit everyone. So we made sure we have some different options. At your next safety meeting, if you don't want to focus on safety glasses again, just take one moment from another topic to thank someone who always wears their safety glasses. If you catch your holdout wearing their safety glasses, make it a big deal in a way that works for that person. What do I mean by that? Not everyone wants to be called out in a meeting. If the person is shy, just thank them one-on-one. It's still recognition. There's many ways to recognize employees, and I'm a huge advocate of recognition programs that allow coworkers to nominate someone for recognition. Using employee photos on the safety board or a simple COTCHA program where employees receive something small like a king-size candy bar and a notation in their employee file for review time. They're simple things that can make a big difference when getting people to cooperate.
Absolutely. Good behavior has to be reinforced. That's a great segue for this slide, Pam. There's a lot of ways to remind employees about your safety rules. We just talked about a few. Bringing up a common problem in safety meetings. Speaking directly with employees is another. Going back to something we got right during COVID, we had posters reminding people how to protect themselves everywhere. A really common reminder that you see at retail stores are the signs that say no shirt, no shoes, no service. Clear and to the point. We have the same types of reminders that we use in safety. I see posters and signs reminding people about PPE all the time. It might say safety glasses are required past this point, or this is a hard hat job site. Those are other examples of reminders. Some companies post how many days they've gone without a work-related injury. That's not specific to a safety rule, but it is a reminder that there is a focus on safety at that workplace. So reminders, whether verbal, written, or otherwise, can also help to reinforce good behavior.
That's very true. Good behavior has to be reinforced, but the best way is to be the example. One of the biggest mistakes you can make as a manager or supervisor is not following your own safety rules. If you don't follow the rules, you can't expect your employees to do something different. Don't be the manager who doesn't wear the proper PPE. Always have your PPE available and set a good example for others.
That brings us to a polling question. And Michelle, I know we're going to be up against time here pretty quick, so I'll let you take it off.
Yeah, so what we'd like is, if we're not going to share this with anybody, but if you wouldn't mind just sharing something that you learned today in the questions box, we'll go ahead and I'll be able to share that with the presenters after the presentation is over. So far, we don't have any questions, ladies, so if you want to go ahead and wrap it up, feel free to do so.
Great, thank you. So in summary, today we talked about HR and safety intersection, how we got it right, finding folks, safety is a value, management of claims, communications, and enforcing the good. We started out by pointing out some of the areas and goals that safety and HR share, and went on to discuss how working together on these shared points can improve results for both. With hiring and new employees, safety needs to be more involved to help find the right people and to ensure that safety expectations are set right up front. From there, we jumped to another common intersection, accidents and claims, and talked about how HR can help safety and planning ahead for the worst, how safety can include HR and investigations, and how the two can share information and work together to resolve the claims by actively caring for the injured worker, tracking the progress of claims, and returning employees to work. Finally, we talked about managers' responsibilities in understanding protocols and using positive reinforcement to get better results. We call this the intersection of safety and HR, but the reality is that a lot of this overlaps between the two. We have a successful safety program and culture. The two have to work together, whether that's two departments or an HR person with the operations manager that will differ from every company that joins us today. We hope that we gave you some ideas on how to use each other to reach your goals, because we're all better together. So performance and retention for safe workplaces reduces absenteeism and turnover. HR uses safety data sheets to develop workforce planning engagement strategies, and safety becomes a business advantage, not just a compliance task. In short, HR and safety intersect where people, policies, and prevention meet. When they work together, organizations create safer workplaces, stronger cultures, and better outcomes for employees and the business. Thank you all so much for being with us here today. If there's any questions, we're happy to take them right now. If something comes to mind later, please feel free to send us an email. Our contact information is on the screen. So we'll give you a couple of minutes here and see if anyone has any follow-up questions.
Yeah, and it's been pretty quiet. So again, as Pam mentioned, if you do have something that comes to mind, feel free to email us afterwards. We appreciate and want to thank each and one of you for attending today's webinar presented by Heffernan. We will send information by email with instructions on how to access a copy of the presentation on our website. And thank you, Pam and Deb, for your time and expertise today. We hope all of the attendees found today's webinar to be a valuable use of your time. Be sure to join us on February 3rd for our fire prevention and EAP planning webinar. Thank you all and have a great and safe day.
Thank you, Pam and Michelle.